This week, the Gary Airport got an unexpected visitor, President Barack Obama. The president had a previously scheduled trip home to Chicago this week, but chose to travel in and out of Northwest Indiana instead. Chicago's Midway and O'Hare airports have been plagued by flight delays and cancellations throughout the week due to a deliberately set fire at the Aurora, Illinois Regional Air Traffic Control Center. The Obama administration made the switch in order to avoid any more disruption at Chicago's two main airports. Karen Freeman Wilson and Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly were among those on hand to welcome the president to Gary. Northwest Indiana residents lined up outside of the Gary Airport to see Air Force One land.
For me to be able to see him here as president and actually land the plane, and the excitement that people had. There were other people here, and I'm glad that other people came out and thought it was a historical event, an opportunity to come out to see this happen. This is history, actually.
From the Gary Airport, the president traveled by helicopter into downtown Chicago. This marks the first time Barack Obama has utilized the Gary Chicago Airport while serving as president. This week, the president announced that more than 100 mayors, county officials, and heads of Indian tribal nations have accepted the My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge, including Gary Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. In February, President Obama launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative to ensure that all youth, including boys and young men of color, have opportunities to improve their life outcomes and overcome barriers to success. This week, the White House issued its Community Challenge, a call to action for all children to get meaningful education and career training, a diploma and a job, and some assurance that they can live and learn in a safe environment. Gary Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson says she's happy the city's decided to join the My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge and says it's time to, quote, roll up our sleeves and get to work, end quote. Indiana, like the rest of the country, is still recovering from the Great Recession, and that recovery is having an impact on the ability of young people to get work. Dejanique Garrison, a correspondent with the Medill News Service, spent the day at the Jobs for America's Graduates' 8th annual youth conference in the nation's capital, finding out how funding for the school-to-work transition program on the federal level could affect Hoosier youth.
At the Jobs for American Graduates Conference in Washington this week, there was little celebration of end of the recession, not with young people, especially at-risk teens who still are feeling a financial squeeze. But even there, some of the news was good.
Over the last 54 months, we've created more than 10 million new private sector jobs. The unemployment rate, which reached a high of 10% in October of 2009, fell to 6.1% last month.
And Deputy Labor Secretary Christopher Lu said Obama administration programs such as My Brother's Keeper and Youth Build are helping get youth access to jobs and careers in growth areas of the economy.
We know that far too many people are struggling to get a foothold in the middle class. Too many people are working harder and falling further behind. Too many job seekers are still sitting on the bench.
Out of the 32 states participating in the JAG program, Indiana reaches the most students with over $6 million allotted in the state budget. But even with those successful numbers, the structure of the program may be in jeopardy due to proposed legislation.
Now, with Congress, they have just recently passed what's called the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. And one of the changes that's actually in that bill is it is requiring that these workforce boards actually change their funding, that 70% of the dollars goes towards individuals that have dropped out of school, versus right now we spend about 70% of those federal dollars to keep kids in school.
House Speaker John Boehner's assistant defended Congress's adjustment to the education funding formula.
We know that you all do a great job of trying to take those at-risk kids and keep them in school. I think the members of Congress felt like there were not other resources available that could target this particular population.
As the commissioner of the Indiana Department of Workforce, Sanders says he will continue to lobby so that the JAG program in Indiana will continue to service students before dropping out is an option. In Washington, Dejanique Garrison, Medill reports.
Workers at one regional transportation authority have new leadership at their helm this week. Former Metra executive Michael Noland is the new general manager for the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District. On Thursday, trustees approved a 3-year contract for the 54-year-old. He'll replace longtime general manager Gerald Hanas, who is retiring in November after 39 years. The trustee board started a nationwide search for new leadership in June. Noland, who will relocate to the region from Glen Ellen, Illinois, is only the second general manager in the company's history. In a statement, spokesperson John Parsons says Noland's appointment will be effective October 27th. A public meeting was held this week at the Maryville Town Hall for the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, or NRPC. Representatives of NRPC were on hand to get public opinion and to discuss increased support for the proposed South Shore rail expansion, possible improvements to the intersection of routes 30 and 41 in Sherrillville, and continued upgrades to region pavements and sidewalks in an effort to make Northwest Indiana more livable. NRPC's Belinda Petrosky says that public input to the NRPC 2040 Comprehensive Regional Plan is critical for everyone in Lake, LaPorte, and Porter counties. NRPC will be holding public meetings throughout the month of October. For meeting times and locations, go to www.nrpc.org. Indiana Secretary of State Connie Lawson is reminding Hoosiers that if you want to vote in the November 4th general election, you need to register to vote by this Monday, October 6th. Indiana residents can register to vote online by going to indianavoters.com, by downloading the Indiana Voter Registration app, or by visiting their local county clerk's office or license branch. If you're already registered to vote, make sure you're registered at your current address. Hoosiers can begin early voting by casting in-person absentee ballots starting October 7th. Voters of a different sort have also elected officials to represent them, not at the polls, but in their own homes. Hillary Powell has a story of how one Gary Tenant Council is taking their concerns to the very top.
An elevator is working now at a city property in Gary after Lakeshore Report asked a few questions. When there's a problem at a property owned by Gary Housing Authority, residents need to contact federal officials. That's the message being given to residents at the Carolyn Mosby Senior Citizen Building after they complained an elevator wasn't working for nearly a week. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development took over the GHA last year following allegations of financial mismanagement, aging buildings, and infestations. One group of residents say their concerns get lost in the structure of the city's current receivership.
A bad back is no barrier to 56-year-old Cynthia Lynch of Gary hitting the stairs. Her only alternative to sharing one tiny elevator with more than 100 other residents.
If you don't want to wait, you have to walk up the stairs or down the stairs, and that's not good in some people's condition. So I just had my back reconstructed, and I can't do all that walking.
There's a consensus in the Carolyn B. Mosley Senior Citizen Center at 650 Jackson Street in Gary. Every month, the residents can rely on, well, unreliability.
There you go. There ain't no room on that floor to get on there.
It's easier to catch a bus in this city than catch the elevator, because when you catch a bus, you do know exactly what time that bus is due. With the elevator, I would say everybody too. You need to plan this.
One of two elevators was broken for nearly a week. Lynch says it happens regularly.
It's beginning to be every month that this has been going on. It's the elevators. And it's unsafe for us, especially the ones that's in wheelchairs. Thank you.
Lynch is a resident at the Gary Housing Authority property. The GHA is currently under receivership with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and C. Ray Baker and Associates after a history of shortcomings. Normally, the process to file a public housing complaint is to go to the property manager on site, then raise it to the local executive director, then the executive board. When we were unable to reach the building's manager, Patricia Brown, this week,
Patricia Brown?
She's not in right now.
we tried to reach an official face-to-face several times in Gary and realized a chat about mobility was going to take place sitting down.
Hello, you've reached the Gary Housing Authority, 578 Broadway, Gary, Indiana. No one is available at this time. The Housing Authority is not in this building, so I have no idea.
Is the director of the Office of Public Housing for HUD in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
So it's not out of the Chicago office?
It is not out of the Chicago office.
Residents say it's not very clear who to speak to when the local manager dodges their questions. They say they don't blame her, they blame the system.
From my observation, the new management has been spread it out a little too far. I understand that, she's one person and she's really stressed out.
I've spoken to people downtown at the GHA building. I've spoken with HUD also. So they know the problem, and we don't know if it's a money issue. This is the worst manager I've seen in my life. We've been promised many things to be fixed. Nothing is getting fixed.
Up and down. We have 8 floors. I had a hip replacement and due for another. It's not easy to do.
HUD officials confirmed the problem elevator is working as of Wednesday. HUD Deputy Assistant Secretary Jerry Brown says providing technical assistance on the local level means personally taking calls.
How can the residents know who to talk to?
You can call me, they can call me, and we'll get them an answer. The fire department responded and turned off the elevator by mistake. The other car was working. The elevator service then came out and turned the car back on. And that's because the housing authority did not have the fire department key.
That is me.
That's
me. That's me. That's my mother.
Lynch says, like the machine she uses to reach her 4th floor apartment, federal and local officials should make sure each party is working properly.
I'm going to hear some feedback, but I don't care. I can deal with it.
They want their rent on time. We would like to have things that's in working condition in the building.
Officials from the Indiana Department of Homeland Security say the elevator is due for inspection this month. We will continue to follow up with housing officials on this issue and bring you any updates. Gary City Hall might soon have the power to appoint school board members. Lakeshore Steve Walsh spoke to an area legislator about how the change in power can impact the classroom.
Faced with a declining enrollment and an even steeper drop in its budget, Gary Community School Corporation is looking at ways to reorganize. Local lawmakers have one suggestion: downsizing the school board from 7 to 5 members and giving 2 of the appointments to Gary's mayor. Talk about the idea. We have Representative Charlie Brown of Gary, who's also head of the Northwest Indiana delegation. Representative Brown, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Steve.
So, Gary School Board, Gary Schools, they've been at a crossroads for a while now. How does changing the school board makeup help things?
Steve, this is a corporation. And as you are fully aware that with every corporation, if there's going to be change, the change starts at the top. And in this particular case, it's a recommendation and an interest of many citizens that we change the composition of the school board for a couple of reasons. When I first became an employee of the school system way back when, there were 64 schools in the Gary Community School Corporation. We are now down to 14. In 92, and it's only been since 92 that the school board members were elected. Prior to that, the mayor of the city appointed all 5 members of the school board. So now we're in 92, I introduced legislation that was passed that says we will overlay the 6 councilmatic districts in Gary and elect a school board trustee in each one of the councilmatic districts and then have one at large so we wouldn't have an even number of members of the school board.
So you were saying originally it was your idea to have the fully elected school board in the first place?
Correct.
So what changed your mind?
The citizens, the same ones that said let's elect, now they're saying something needs to happen. The school corporation is in dire needs, and so why not change the composition of the school board? And here's what the major reason. There were schools all over the city of Gary. We have the district concept, but in one of the districts there are no schools operating. In 2 of the districts, they only have 2 schools in each of the districts. So citizens are saying, why do we need to stick with the district concept when some of the districts do not have any schools or a minimal number of schools operating? So that's what brought on the discussion about changing it and having reducing it to 5 and having only 3 elected and have them elected citywide and give the mayor 2 appointments. Why the mayor?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, why
Let
the
me
mayor?
ask the questions. Yeah, why the mayor? This was an idea that actually came up during Scott King's administration. He wanted to follow the lead of Mayor Daley in Chicago and take over the school system. He did not get a very warm reception in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and I acquiesced to the wishes of Mayor Scott King and gave him one appointment with the caveat that the person would have to have certain qualifications. And in my opinion and opinions of others, Mayor King did not follow that the edict of the legislation in terms of the person that he appointed.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it. Representative Charlie Brown, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you very much.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a time for some frank conversations about women's health. Patients diagnosed with cancer in one breast can choose to remove the cancerous breast, remove both breasts, or have breast-conserving surgery combined with radiation. A new study examines the use of these different options for women in California and whether there are any differences in their survival rates. Catherine Dull has more in this week's JAMA report.
During recent years, more and more women have been choosing a double mastectomy to treat cancer diagnosed in just one breast.
The use of double mastectomy indeed increased steadily over time from the period of 1988 to 2011.
What we don't know is what happens to those women afterward and whether they gain any benefit in terms of survival.
Dr. Allison Kurian from Stanford University School of Medicine and Dr. Scarlett Gomez from the Cancer Prevention Institute of California and co-authors studied a database of women diagnosed with breast cancer in California during the past decade. They examined records of women with early-stage cancer diagnosed in just one breast who underwent a single mastectomy, double mastectomy, or breast-conserving surgery with radiation.
We ended up studying more than 189,000 women for at least 7 years each.
We were able to study the experiences of women from many different racial ethnic groups, socioeconomic backgrounds.
The rates of double mastectomy to treat a one-sided breast cancer have increased at a rate of 14% a year.
Women under age 40 were using double mastectomy at a much higher rate. In 2011, nearly a third of women in that age group were having double mastectomy.
The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
Women who had double mastectomy did not seem to have any better survival than women who had the other two surgical procedures.
The women who had the single mastectomy did have worse survival than the other groups of women.
The researchers found that women having double mastectomy tended to be non-Hispanic whites with a higher socioeconomic status and private insurance. In contrast, those having single mastectomy were more likely minorities with lower socioeconomic status and public insurance.
We really need to improve on our strategies for communicating this kind of information to a patient who is making choices about how to treat her early breast cancer.
Catherine Dolph, the JAMA Report.
Tomorrow night, you'll have a chance to explore Latin culture at the Bishop Noll Institute in Hammond. John Kane has more on this week's Eye on the Arts.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Deborah Bolanos, who is the president of, and I'm going to read it, SCCLR. Now, I usually don't like acronyms, Deborah, because they always sound like government regulatory agencies or something, but I didn't want to mess up. So you say what it is.
It's the Sociedad Cultural Cívica La Reforma.
See, you did that beautifully. I would have messed it up. At the least, I would have gotten it in the wrong order. So what is Sociedad? You have been, first of all, you've been a grantee organization of South Shore Arts and the Indiana Arts Commission for many years.
Yes, we have.
You're located in East Chicago.
Yes.
Okay. And you're a dance group, among other things.
Right.
Among other things.
Among other things.
Okay. Well, just say quickly what you do.
With the organization, the organization's mission is to promote the Mexican culture and Latino cultures. And the other is also scholarship education to further the higher education for Latino students in the area.
Okay, but you have an arts component to
Yes,
that,
we do.
obviously. So,
Yes.
and tomorrow night you have what's called a Night of Latin Culture.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, the Night of Latin Culture I'm very proud of because that was really my idea that I came up with 8 years ago. It consists of Latin American countries that come together with their folklore, their art, their music and history. And what we do is that we bring all these countries together under one roof for one night and it's for about 4 hours. And it's it's just a beautiful show full of color and culture, and families come, and it's free of charge.
You get a lot of people.
Yes, we do. We get quite a few people, yes.
And are there also a lot of participants?
Yes.
Then in terms of performers and so forth?
Yes, the performers, we get, I think in performers we may have about maybe 20 in total with the groups, because they're large groups that come in. I would say 25, and that's not including the art gallery, because that's presented before the show.
I see. So it's visual art as well as performing arts.
Yes, it is.
And where did these groups come from?
Well,
The performers?
a lot of the groups are from outside of the area, unfortunately. They're based in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, but that's good.
But we go out, or we network, or thereby people tell us, you know, there's a group here or there, maybe you want to come out and see them, and that's what we do, and we bring them.
Okay.
Bring them on to the show.
Well, thank you for being here to tell us about it, and
thank
good luck
you.
tomorrow night.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts.
Eye on the Arts is made possible in part by South Shore Arts, the Indiana Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency.
Every month, we introduce you to individuals making a big difference here in Northwest Indiana. These Innovators of the Month are selected through the Gerald I. Lampkin Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center of Ivy Tech Community College Northwest. One of this month's innovators is Carl Lysek of South Shore Clean Cities.
Well, South Shore Clean Cities is a 501c3 not-for-profit, and our mission is to reduce dependence on imported oil by promoting alternative fuels and different types of technology that's going to reduce emissions here in Northwest Indiana. Being a fuel-neutral organization, it's our role really is just to provide education. There's auto gas, which is propane, there's natural gas, there's E85 stations, there's natural gas stations, and then there's also electric charging stations. Right now, there's probably about 670 of these combined. Back in 2012, our area was designated as showing the biggest increases or reductions in petroleum, and we're very proud of that, but we see that just as the tip of the iceberg. We see many more opportunities moving towards fuel independence here in northern Indiana. We'll probably double our numbers in 5 years in petroleum reduction.
With our current fleet of CNG vehicles, we're probably using 6 or 7 stations to keep them fueled up. The benefits are, the lower cost, and it is a clean fuel too. We don't have to treat the emissions from CNG fueled equipment like we do for our diesel equipment, as well as the cost to operate the trucks is lower with the CNG fuel, and that's just because we have a lot here domestically that is available, and there's probably a little bit more available than is being used currently.
You know, people think when they have to be green, they have to spend tremendous amounts of money of purchasing new equipment, and we feel like just by simple things, by riding our bikes, getting out of our cars, that can be green. So we consider innovation really is doing simple things, and we equate it to the baseball terminology. We'd like to hit a lot of singles. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be green.
For more on the Innovators of the Month or any of our stories, you can go to our website at lakeshorepublicmedia.org.
That's right. You can always find us on the web and reach out to us there with your questions, comments, and concerns. Email us if you choose at tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. And you can also reach us on Facebook or Twitter. And one viewer did from East Chicago, TMags23, when we were covering the president yesterday, wrote, "Yes, the president going through my town." I thought that was really cool. Wanted to share that with viewers. So again, you can always express your thoughts to us.
We love to hear from our viewers. We want to thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you again next week on Lakeshore Report.